After my surgery took a bad turn, I sent a text that said, "Please, I just need someone to stay with the kids for a bit." Hours went by, and instead of help, my sister started spamming the family chat with pictures from a winery trip. Not a single person showed up. 3 weeks later, still stuck in a hospital bed and barely awake on pain meds, I woke up to 68 missed calls. Then I saw a Venmo request from my mom that said, "Need $2,600 ASAP." That's when I completely lost it, and can you imagine waking up from emergency surgery, half-drugged and terrified, only to find out that the people you bled for, the people you thought were family, had let your children fend for themselves for days? That's what hit me. Not the pain, not the recovery, but the deafening silence from the very people who were supposed to care. My name is Jasmine, I'm 35, and I live in Chicago with my two amazing kids. For as long as I can remember, I've been the go-to person, the dependable one, the family ATM, the fixer. You know the type. I paid for my sister Jessica's tuition when she was about to drop out of grad school. Last winter, I forked over the cash for a new furnace for my parents without them even asking. And my younger brother? I pulled him out of credit card debt not once, but twice. I never needed anyone to beg. I just did it. Because, in my mind, that's what family meant. You step up, no questions asked. So, when I found myself in the ER, writhing in unbearable abdominal pain, and the doctors told me I needed emergency surgery, my first thought wasn't even about me. My mind immediately raced to Liam and Ava, my 10 and 6-year-olds. They were home alone. Their dad, well, he hasn't been in the picture for years. From my hospital bed, still hooked up to IVs and monitors, I fumbled for my phone and sent a message to our family group chat. It was simple: "Please, I just need someone to stay with the kids for a couple of days." I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I figured that would be enough. I was so wrong. Jessica was the first to respond. Not with a call. Not with a single word of concern. Just a boomerang video of her at a winery, twirling in a floral dress, a glass of rose in her hand, with the caption, #week starts now. Nothing else. No follow-up. My parents saw my message. I could see the read receipts. But they didn't reply either. Nothing. It was like I hadn't just told them their daughter was going into surgery and their grandkids were home alone. I lay there for hours, staring at the ceiling, waiting for something. Anything. But it never came. I woke up after the operation, groggy and sore, but still, utterly alone. A nurse handed me my phone, and that's when I saw the missed calls. They weren't from my family. They were from my neighbor, Mrs. Gutierrez. Her voicemail was an absolute punch to the gut. She said she'd found Liam wandering in the hallway, asking if she had milk. That's how I found out my babies had been left alone for nearly 2 days. I couldn't even process it at first. I just stared at the sterile hospital wall, a hollowness opening up inside me. Mrs. Gutierrez, bless her heart, had called the school, and then CPS. But then, a ray of sunshine in the darkness. Rachel, my cousin, got wind of what was happening and dropped everything. She and her husband, Evan, drove straight from Aurora. They showed up with food, clothes, and just stayed with my kids. They didn't ask questions. They didn't hesitate. They just showed up. Rachel texted me updates. Ava had been sleeping in a pile of laundry, and Liam had tried to microwave frozen chicken nuggets without even taking the plastic off. Evan took care of their lunches and walked them to school. Rachel helped Ava with her homework and patiently braided her hair. I hadn't even asked them. They just did it. Meanwhile, Jessica was still out there, posting selfies, holding oversized wine glasses, hashtagging #blessed and #family-time. My mom liked every single post. Not one person from my immediate family, the people who were supposed to be there for me, asked how my kids were doing. They didn't even acknowledge my message. I ended up staying in the hospital for 3 more weeks. Recovery was brutal. The pain meds kept me half asleep most of the time, and I kept drifting in and out of consciousness. Rachel and Evan, though, they kept everything running at home. Honestly, I don't know what I would have done without them. And the truth is, I didn't even want to think about it. Then one morning, I woke up, looked at my phone, and saw it. 68 missed calls from my mother. And then, a Venmo request. For $2,600. The note just said urgent. No message about me. No question about the kids. Just that. And that's when something inside me snapped. For the first time in my life, I felt completely, utterly done. There's something truly humiliating about waking up in a hospital bed, still foggy from painkillers, and seeing 68 missed calls from your own mother, not because she's worried if you're alive, but because she wants money. Not one message asking if I was okay. Not one asking about Liam or Ava. Just that Venmo request for $2,600 with the word urgent. I didn't respond. I just stared at the screen, my heart racing, like I was seeing something I wasn't supposed to. But it was all right there, black and white. I was nothing more than a wallet to them. She called again that afternoon. I picked up, and without even a "how are you feeling, Jasmine," she launched into it. She said my brother's car had broken down, that he couldn't get to class or his job. Then she said, if you cared about your family, you'd help. I just waited. I waited for her to acknowledge that she hadn't even responded when I begged for someone to stay with my kids. I waited for her to ask about my surgery. Nothing came. Just more about how I was their last hope. I told her no. Flat out. No apology, no explanation, just that single word. She didn't take it well. She immediately launched into how I was turning cold, selfish, and how money had gotten to my head. That was rich, considering I'd paid off her mortgage just 3 years ago when they were drowning in late fees and pretending everything was fine. She hung up before I could say anything else. Not even 24 hours later, Jessica messaged me on Instagram. Not even a "hey, how are you?" Just a question about whether I was still planning to send money for her boyfriend's birthday trip. I didn't reply. So, she followed up with a passive-aggressive comment under one of my old posts, "Some people forget where they came from." Like I hadn't just nearly died. Then my dad texted. It was long, rambling, and dripping with passive aggression. He brought up every single favor they'd ever done for me, real or imagined. He told me I was abandoning the family. He ended it with a screenshot of a GoFundMe he'd set up for home repairs, and suggested I pitch in like I used to. I was still on antibiotics. My incision was still healing. And I was fielding guilt trips like it was my full-time job. The only person who seemed to truly get it was Rachel. I called her later that night, exhausted and tearful. I didn't even need to explain everything, she already knew. She told me Evan had taken time off work to stay with the kids and was helping Liam catch up on homework. Ava, she said, had stopped having nightmares once she realized they weren't going anywhere. I told Rachel about the calls, the money, the constant pressure. All she said was, maybe it's time they learn what life looks like without you carrying them. That sentence hit me hard because I knew, deep down, she was right. When I finally got home from the hospital, the house was cleaner than I'd left it. The kids were calm. For the first time in a long time, I felt like someone truly had my back. But I also knew I had work to do. Over the years, my name had somehow ended up on just about everything related to my family. Family phone plans, joint savings accounts, a backup credit card my sister had somehow never stopped using. I'd been the one paying the insurance on my parents' house. The storage unit with all their junk was in my name. They were also used to the constant flow of money that they didn't even pretend to be grateful anymore. They treated it like a given. So, I started unraveling it all. First, I pulled out of the shared savings account. Then, I canceled the car insurance Jessica used for emergencies that somehow kept getting charged for Sephora orders. I called the utility company and transferred the bills for my parents' house back into their names. I stopped paying my brother's tuition. I told him flat out that it was time he figured things out on his own. And I didn't make a speech. I didn't explain. I just cut the cords, one by one. The reaction was immediate. Jessica posted one of those vague, bitter quotes on Facebook, something about betrayal and the pain of being used. My mom sent a mass text to the family chat, making it sound like I was punishing them for not jumping fast enough. My dad sent another guilt-laced message and linked the GoFundMe again, like I'd missed it the first time. But this time, none of it worked. I didn't cave. I didn't respond. I wasn't just protecting my bank account, I was protecting my kids, myself, my sanity. And without me holding it all together, cracks started showing fast. I didn't expect them to fall apart so quickly. It had only been a week since I cut off the accounts. No more tuition payments, no backup credit card, no utility bills covered. I figured they'd try to regroup quietly. Instead, they imploded. Publicly. Jessica was the first to go loud. She posted a long, dramatic caption under a photo of herself crying on her bathroom floor, holding a glass of wine. The caption said something like, "Some wounds cut deepest when they come from people who are supposed to love you. Family isn't always blood." Comments poured in. Friends I hadn't seen in years tagged me and messaged me, asking what was going on. I didn't say a word. I just watched her feed spiral into this weird mix of emotional breakdowns and brand partnerships. One day she's crying about betrayal, the next, she's doing a sponsored post for some teeth whitening kit. It was all performative, and it was working. People were buying it. My mom went a different route. She started calling relatives, cousins, aunts, people we only saw at weddings, telling them I had abandoned the family, that I let the kids go hungry to teach them a lesson, that I was hoarding money I didn't even need. She painted this image of me as some cold-hearted, bitter person trying to punish everyone for not coming when I had a small procedure. Rachel heard all of it first. People started calling her, confused. One of our aunts even reached out to me directly, saying she was worried that she'd heard I was unstable and had cut off the whole family in a fit of rage. I didn't even try to correct it. I just told Rachel, let them talk. I was done managing other people's comfort. But then things really escalated. Jessica's boyfriend, the one I never liked, the one who once asked me to spot him $800 for a business investment, showed up at my house, unannounced. He stood at my front door with some printed paper in his hand and started saying he was there to collect on past commitments. I told him if he didn't leave, I was calling the police. He just smirked, told me my sister was going to make this right, and walked off. I texted Jessica immediately. She didn't deny it. She just replied, "I warned you there'd be consequences." That same night, my mom sent another Venmo request. This one for $1,900, labeled urgent medication for Dad. My dad then called me himself, and when I didn't pick up, he left a voicemail saying that I was tearing the family apart. But here's the thing. The family was never whole. It just looked that way because I kept patching it together. What none of them expected was that I wasn't alone anymore. Rachel and Evan had my back. And Mrs. Gutierrez, she had actually filed a formal complaint with CPS about how my kids had been left without care. CPS contacted me to follow up, not because I was in trouble, but because she'd made it clear the issue had been neglect by my family. CPS closed the matter within a few days after confirming everything was stable, but it left a paper trail. And I kept all the receipts. Screenshots, messages, voicemails, photos, even the old group chat where they ignored me while I begged for someone to stay with Liam and Ava. It all built up slowly, one event after another, and I knew the time was coming to stop staying quiet. I used to think that if I just stayed quiet long enough, things would settle. That if I ignored the noise, the guilt-tripping, the whispered blame, it would burn out on its own. But then Liam's school called. It was his counselor. She said they were a little concerned after an in-class assignment. The kids had been asked to draw their families. Liam's drawing showed Rachel, Evan, Ava, and himself. No one else. Not even me. When asked where I was in the picture, he just said, "Mom was sick. Rachel and Evan took care of us." I sat there, holding the phone, unable to move. My son hadn't drawn his grandparents, his aunt, or his uncle. The people who claimed to love him the most weren't even in the picture, and I understood why. They hadn't been there when it counted. Then the counselor said something else. There had been anonymous phone calls to the school, complaints that my children had been left alone, that I was an unfit parent, that someone needed to look into it. She told me the number was private, but the school had traced its origin to a Florida area code. My parents' Florida condo. That was the last thread. I didn't even hesitate. That night, I wrote everything down. A full, detailed post. I didn't use names. I didn't have to. I laid out the dates, the surgery, the ignored messages, the missed calls, the Venmo request, the pressure, the smear campaign. I attached screenshots of texts, the group chat where they read my plea and stayed silent. The request for $2,600 while I was on pain meds in a hospital bed. I posted it on Facebook, where every aunt, cousin, in-law, church friend, and high school classmate could see it. And it exploded. The comments started within minutes. At first, it was people saying they were sorry for what I'd been through. Then the truth started coming out. Extended family, old friends, neighbors, people I barely remembered, started messaging me with their own stories, things I had no idea about. One woman, an old babysitter from when I was 12, said she once caught my mom threatening to cut off contact with Rachel's family unless they started pulling their weight. Another cousin told me he had been pressured into co-signing a loan for my brother years ago and was still paying it off. But what really flipped everything upside down was a message I got late that night. It was from Jessica's ex, a guy she dated back in grad school. We'd met once briefly, years ago. He told me that what I was going through wasn't new, not even for Jessica. He said that when they were still together, Jessica had faked a medical emergency. Told her professors and friends that her appendix had burst, then raised over $4,000 through a GoFundMe. She never had surgery. She spent the money on a Cancun vacation. He had proof. Emails, screenshots, even the plane tickets. She told everyone she was recovering quietly at a friend's house while she was actually drinking cocktails on the beach. I couldn't believe it, but at the same time, I absolutely could. It tracked. He offered to send me everything. Not for revenge, he said. He just didn't want to be part of the lie anymore. And then, the unexpected twist that I never saw coming. I got a call from my grandmother, my mom's mom. We hadn't spoken in over a year. She's 83 and usually stays out of the family mess. But she told me she saw the post. Her voice shook when she said she'd always known something was wrong, that she'd seen how my mother treated me. But she kept quiet because no one listened when she tried to warn them. Then she apologized. That stopped me dead in my tracks, because in all the years I'd been shamed, used, or manipulated, no one in that generation had ever once said the words, "I'm sorry." Before we hung up, she said something I'll never forget: "You didn't destroy the family, Jasmine. You just stopped letting them destroy you." And it stuck with me, because for the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't the crazy one. I wasn't ungrateful. I wasn't cold. I had just finally said no. And it was loud enough that other people started seeing clearly, too. By the next morning, my post had made the rounds. Jessica deleted her Instagram. My mom posted some cryptic quote about betrayal and forgiveness. My dad tried to act like he didn't see any of it. But it was already out there. And what followed next was the one thing they weren't ready for: accountability. I didn't expect everything to unravel so fast after the post went viral within our small circle. I thought maybe it would stir some tension, a few awkward phone calls, and then fizzle out. But something shifted. The silence turned into consequence, and not for me. The first real blow came to Jessica. Her little side hustle, selling affiliate links and working with local brands on social media, took a nosedive. A boutique skincare brand she partnered with reached out to me privately and asked if the story in the post was about her. I didn't answer directly. I just sent them the screenshot of her winery selfie that she posted the day I went into surgery, right underneath the message where I'd asked for help with the kids. They cut ties with her by the end of the week. Her response was a flurry of stories about online bullying and people trying to sabotage her business, but there were no names. She couldn't name me without confirming what everyone already suspected. Then came my mother. She'd always been the quiet puppeteer, the one behind the curtain, keeping the family image polished while pulling every string. But it turns out she wasn't as invisible as she thought. Two of her old friends, women she'd known since church days, commented under my post publicly, asking if what I said was true. I didn't answer, but Rachel did. She replied with just 2 sentences, "Every word is true. We have the receipts." After that, my mom tried damage control. She called my grandmother. She called Rachel. She called me 5 times in one night, leaving a voicemail every single time, each one more unhinged than the last. The 5th one ended with her saying I had burned every bridge and couldn't be part of this family anymore unless I fixed what I'd broken. I played that last voicemail on speaker while sitting in the living room with Rachel, Evan, and the kids. Nobody said a word. It didn't need commentary. But the most unexpected fallout came from an email I got a few days later. It was from a lawyer. At first, I panicked. I wondered if my family was trying to sue me or silence me. But it wasn't that at all. It was a warning. Years ago, my parents had opened a shared account with me when I helped them manage a property they were renting out. I'd completely forgotten about it. Turns out, my name was still on it, and they'd recently tried to move funds from it without my consent. The account had triggered a flag because the signature didn't match. The lawyer who handled the property's legal paperwork back in the day was letting me know I might want to look into it. When I did, I found they tried to access nearly $8,000, money I didn't even realize was still in the account. They hadn't just tried to manipulate me emotionally. They were still trying to drain me financially, behind my back. I froze for a moment. Then I went cold. I transferred the funds into a trust, one that only my kids could touch in the future. Then I filed a report, not to start a lawsuit, but to protect myself. I closed every old financial tie that still connected me to them. And just like that, the bridge burned completely. But this time I wasn't sad. I wasn't panicked. I was free. My cousin texted me that night, "They thought they were untouchable. They forgot you were the one holding everything up." And she was right. Without me, they weren't just exposed. They were unraveling. Jessica had no sponsor money. My parents were struggling to keep up with bills. My brother even reached out to Evan, not me, asking if he could help him get a job. But I wasn't looking for revenge. I wasn't even happy about it. I just watched it all fall, finally understanding something I should have learned years ago. Sometimes karma doesn't come like a firestorm. Sometimes it just looks like someone quietly walking away and taking the whole foundation with them. It took less than 3 months for everything to collapse. Jessica moved out of her apartment and back in with a friend after her last brand deal fell through. She deleted most of her old posts and started a new account, pretending nothing had happened. My mom and dad stopped calling altogether after the lawyer sent them a formal cease and desist about accessing the account they no longer had rights to. My brother never reached out to me directly again. Evan told me he ended up taking a job in another state, far away from all the mess. The messages, the threats, the guilt, it all stopped. Not because they had a change of heart, but because they ran out of access. Once the resources dried up, so did their interest. And I didn't miss them. What surprised me most was how quiet life became. No constant requests, no last-minute money emergencies, no manipulation hidden behind family obligations. Just real peace. Rachel and Evan stayed close. So did my grandmother. We started having dinner together every Sunday. Just the four of us and the kids. Liam started drawing me in his family pictures again. Ava told me she liked how our house felt safe now. That word hit harder than any apology I never got. I enrolled in a business course online, something I'd put off for years because I was always too busy fixing everyone else's life. I started saving money for the first time in over a decade. And I used part of what was left from that property account to open savings accounts for Liam and Ava. One evening, I took them both out for ice cream and told them something I wish someone had told me when I was younger: you are never responsible for someone else's bad choices, not even if they're family. They nodded, like they didn't fully get it yet, but they would. I didn't speak badly about their grandparents or aunt. I just stopped including them. Quietly. Permanently. I blocked the numbers, took down old photos, and created a new group chat with just the people who had shown up. Rachel, Evan, my grandmother, Mrs. Gutierrez. Those four became my new circle. My real family. No drama, no expectations, just mutual care and presence. One day, months later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just a handwritten note inside that said, "We didn't know what we had until you were gone. We're sorry." I didn't even need to guess who sent it. I folded it up, placed it in a drawer, and didn't respond. Not because I was bitter, but because I no longer needed anything from them. Not money, not approval, not closure. I already had everything I needed. The real lesson wasn't about betrayal. It wasn't even about revenge. It was about power. About how much of mine I had been handing away for years in the name of family, and how good it felt to take it back. Not loudly, not dramatically, just completely.